A special Sunday Independent Ireland Thinks poll carried out on Friday and into the early hours of Saturday has found that Fine Gael, under the new leadership of Simon Harris, has received a small bounce in up 2%. I'm Alan English, editor of the Sunday Independent, and I'm joined by Jodie Corcoran, deputy editor, and Kevin Cunningham, managing director of Ireland Thinks, our polling company partner. First, I'll give you the updated positions on the February poll. The state of the parties: Sinn Féin unchanged at 27%, Fine Gael 22%, up 2%, Fianna Fáil 17%, down 1%, the Social Democrats 6%, down 1%, the biggest movers Aontú 4%, up 2 points, Labour Party unchanged at 4%, likewise the Green Party also unchanged at 4%, Solidarity, People Before Profit, unchanged at 2%. The independents have suffered a little bit in this poll, down 3 points to 14%. Kevin, it's you could say a welcome early fillip for the leader who will be elected today.
Yeah, no doubt about it. On that 2 point bump, I mean, it's actually quite small, obviously, but at least it'll be reassuring for Fine Gael more broadly that they have had an increase in support. It's a 5 point gap down to Fianna Fáil, which is quite interesting, which is the biggest gap that they've had since April of last year, so that's quite important. But it's also interestingly, and partly because of the problems Sinn Féin are having, a 5 point gap to Sinn Féin. So potentially Fine Gael are in a position now which, you know, they're actually relatively close to Sinn Féin, which is quite positive, I guess. On the one hand, people might think it is within the margin of error. A 2 point jump is not an enormous jump, but we have panel data here, so we can look at how people said that they were voting in previous months, and,
right.
And we're looking at how they're voting today, and we can see quite clearly that there is a subset of voters who came from Fianna Fáil and a little bit from the Social Democrats, who particularly like Simon Harris, who seem to have moved across to the party. So I think we can be relatively certain that there is a shift as a result of Simon Harris, but obviously it is also it's quite small.
Okay, one big talking point from the week was that the country and the party was denied a leadership contest. A lot of people would have liked one. We saw what the outcome once it went to the parliamentary party. Harris swept the board. Nobody dared to challenge him. We decided to put it to the test, though, in this poll, and we put the candidates out there before the public. 1,310 respondents, I think, and it was interesting that in the general cohort, Harris finished third behind Simon Coveney and Pascal Donoghue, who were locked at 21% each. Yeah. Harris 16%. But when we split that down into the Fine Gael voters, Harris emerged on top with 25%, 32%. Sorry, with the other two on 25%. Yeah. Jodie, what do you make of that?
Well, yeah, we put it to the public. 21% came out in favour of Simon Coveney, 21% in Pascal Donoghue, and it slips back to 16% to Simon Harris. That's overall. And then there are the also-rans, Helen McEntee, Heather Humphreys, and a large 27% were unsure, said they don't know. That's not a great finding, really, for Simon Harris. He's a long way behind Simon Coveney and Pascal Donoghue. But, look, he wanted the job. Simon Coveney ruled himself out early. Yeah. Pascal Donoghue ruled himself out. So he has the position. So we break down the results, and there is support for him amongst Fine Gael voters. A third of Fine Gael voters.
I suspect that when we carried out this poll, it was already a done deal. You know.
Yeah.
So there was probably a sense that Fine Gael supporters decided he's our man now. We're going to row in behind him. You know, had the poll been conducted, if there had been a race, one suspects he might not.
Well, yeah. With that said, if you add it up, though, there's a combined 50% of Fine Gael voters, 25% for Coveney, 25%. Separate 25% for Donoghue, who would have preferred those two candidates. Yet, a sizable enough, a third of Fine Gael supporters backed their new man.
Mm. Yeah. It's Harris's party now.
It's strong, but it's not overwhelming. You know?
Yeah. Kevin, another finding that we had was that quite a significant bounce in the number of people who were looking for a general election. immediately.
Yeah.
I think it's up 16% on when we last polled
Up 16.
a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, absolutely. So the question we asked, would you like to see a general election take place? One of the options was immediately. Earlier this month, it was 19% who wanted that. Now it's 35%. That's quite a substantial jump. You could probably argue that some of this is led by the opposition parties who are demanding, particularly Sinn Féin, obviously demanding an election immediately. And this is perhaps a natural response of voters who support Sinn Féin who are sort of agreeing with that assertion. There is a slight increase in the number of people who want the election to be pushed out as far as possible. That was 33%. This is the answer, which would be when scheduled in 2025. So the number of people who wanted to be pushed out to the maximum. That was 33% earlier this month, and that's moved up to 38%. What we've seen before is these sorts of differences reflect whether you support the government or support the opposition. Yeah. But now it's much, much clearer. There was another question which asked, should Simon Harris seek his own mandate?
As has been demanded by a lot of opposition politicians. You know, nobody voted for you to be Taoiseach other than your own buddies.
Yeah, there was strong support for him that he should seek his own mandate. Still a minority, but 47%. And 41% say no, he shouldn't. So, look, there is an issue. We all know this is not going to happen. The government is not going to call an election. But there is a growing momentum behind support for an election sooner rather than later here.
Yeah. When it comes to the big issues, I mean, we in the Sunday Independent Ireland Thinks poll every month we have, you know, what are the key issues of the month, and you know, leading the way for quite some time now have been housing, cost of living, immigration, the health service. So we put it to the test. Do people feel that the election of Simon Harris and the replacement of Leo Varadkar as Taoiseach by him would make a difference? Fair to say that would he be more successful, I think was the way the question was phrased, would he be more successful than Leo Varadkar? 50% saying there will be no difference, 23% agreeing. One suspects most of them would be Fine Gael voters, and 18% saying he'll be less successful. So again, not exactly a huge amount of optimism that the dial is going to be moved by this appointment.
No. Sorry, Captain.
Okay, no, you're absolutely right. I mean, that 23 versus 18, so that's a bit of a comparison with himself versus Leo Varadkar. So there's a little bit of optimism in some way, a little bit of a difference there, but it's so small. It kind of suggests that I think for a lot of voters, there isn't really much of a difference. Maybe the narrative around Simon Harris is that he's a very hard-working parliamentarian, and that does come out in some of our kind of open-endeds. And maybe that's what's causing people to believe that he'll be more successful. But yeah, as you say, it's really only Fine Gael voters, 47% of which believe he'll be more successful, and a little bit of Fianna Fáil outside of that.
Just to bring you in on this one, Jody. Another key question. We have a lot of people saying that Simon Harris is somebody who is a political animal to his core.
Yeah.
You know, he was sending press releases from the age of 13, 14, 15. You know, he's just wanted this all his life, right? But he has no experience outside of politics. And so one question we asked was, do you believe he has the experience and the qualities needed to be a successful Taoiseach? Not surprisingly, 73% of Fine Gael voters thought he had, although interestingly 10% didn't feel he had. Perhaps...
the 10% didn't think he had, and 17% don't know, so a quarter of Fine Gael voters are unsure about that. But in general, as to whether people believe he has the experience or qualities needed, 46% say no, and a lesser, 10% lesser, 36% say yes. So again, it's kind of reflective of a general underwhelming response to his elevation as Fine Gael leader.
I was struck by that finding early this morning when the results came in, Kevin, and I put it to you that it seemed it would be something that Simon Harris might be disappointed by, but you took a slightly different.
I think 36 is quite good. I mean, given that in some respects Fine Gael is a relatively small. Well, look, Fine Gael support is 22% today. 36% believe he has the experience and qualities needed to be a successful Taoiseach. I mean, it's a larger number than the Fine Gael vote. So I would kind of think, well, that's quite positive, because there are people within other parties, particularly Fianna Fáil and indeed the Labour Party, and substantial numbers, as I said again, from the Social Democrats, who really always in the last kind of couple of years seem like they always have this upside potential, and perhaps Harris at least is the man from the Fine Gael side who seems to be stemming that a little bit. So he does have an appeal outside his base, but it's in certain corners, I guess, of the electorate.
Well, the forgotten man in all of this, and almost forgotten already, is Leo Varadkar. We didn't quite forget him in this poll. We put in a question there asking people, what do they... We ask every month anyway, what do you think of his performance as a leader?
Yeah.
Overall, the result for this special poll was unchanged. He had a 41% approval rating.
Yeah.
But I thought it was interesting that among Fine Gael supporters, he had a 79% approval rating. So maybe going out on a reasonable high with his own party, but there's no evidence to suggest that the general public will rue his decision.
Yeah, we had that open-ended question. You're right, and there was this significant disappointment, I think, probably amongst Fine Gael supporters that he had resigned. But there are substantial numbers, obviously, outside of that are happy to see him go, I guess. But I guess they would probably be happy to see any Fine Gael leader go in some respect. So,
just coming back to the issue of experience and qualities, one question which kind of relates to that, and this is again something that's not going to happen, because no more than there's not going to be a general election anytime relatively soon. We asked which of the two main coalition party leaders, Fianna Fáil or Fine Gael, would you prefer to be elected as Taoiseach in succession to Leo Varadkar? And 42% said Micheál Martin and 31% said Simon Harris. Now, it will be Simon Harris, but again, it's perhaps I think he would see it as something of a disappointing result that he would come in, 11 points behind Micheál Martin on that question. He will be Fine Gael later today. He will be Taoiseach very soon. He has won the position. He won it very comfortably. He won it very confidently. He is an ambitious young man. And, I think in general there's a holding pattern here in this poll. People, I think, will give him a chance.
Yeah. See
how he does. He has a year at most before the general election. And I guess it's down to himself now. Yeah. I'd say the job that he has always craved, he has it. And let's see what he does with it. Thank you, Jody. Thank you, Kevin. Interesting stuff. And for more on this, plenty of analysis in the Sunday Independent and online at independent.ie.